mentioned that it is Pride Month, the month of June globally. Now, this all started in the mid-1960s. There was an incident that took place in Stonewall, USA, and that was a watershed moment for the LGBTQI community. A number of persons don't know the significance of what happened on that day, I think it was 1964, and why it impacted the world and why it's now considered a month of celebration. It was a moment when we saw persons fighting for the right to be heard. The fight for equality and equity continues. And, you know, Trinidad and Tobago is having conversations, but I feel as though sometimes we're not committed to these conversations. That it's a box that we tick off. That, okay, yeah, we're having this conversation on human rights, but we really do have to be serious about all-inclusiveness. And the fact is that there are persons who are struggling with conversations. And when we do not make these conversations comfortable, there are persons who continue to live on the fringes of our society. This month we're celebrating Pride Month, the month of June globally, coming out of that Stonewall event. Globally, communities and countries have adopted the month of June to celebrate equality and inclusiveness. I know when people hear Pride and Pride Month, a number of things will start coming in our social media, and this is not what we're about. We're about having conversations that advance a nation. And if we have to truly be an advanced nation, it's about equality for all. Race, creed, color, class, choice. You have a choice, as everyone else should be able to exercise that choice. But joining us on the Morning Brew at this time, we have Loris and we also have Rudy, and they're here to talk to us about Pride Month, and it's something to celebrate. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Rudy, good morning to you both. When I first started, the month of June, everyone knows globally that this is Pride Month, and there are parades, and I see around the region we're having events that are growing in numbers. It's being supported by not just the LGBTQI community, but society. Like, you're seeing the support group expanding to say, you know what, we are all human beings. What does Pride Month mean to you, and the historical significance? Because I made a reference to the Stonewall event in 1964.
So throughout that period, as you said, it was a watershed moment when especially the trans community, and this year we are celebrating them in particular, they are oftentimes are on the front lines of this struggle, because it's very difficult for them to what we say as pass in the community. And they decided, Marsha P. Washington and Sylvia Rivera, two foremost names, decided that, you know what, we are citizens too, and we are fed up of being treated as second-class members of society. And they stood up, and through that bravery, because they were risking their lives, they were able to start this movement. So for us in the Caribbean, we see that same struggle in our own history, whether it is from the times of slavery, indentureship, marching against the colonial order and the labor riots and women's rights. They are all interlinked. So for us, Pride is a moment to really stand tall and stand for others as well, those who still don't feel comfortable or who are still oppressed and cannot stand for themselves. So it's a moment of unity and to stand with our allies as well.
Now, we talk about with our allies is the LGBTQI community. When we talk about Pride Month, and it is also about recognizing the trans community and celebrating them, is there discrimination? Is there inequality? Is there, because a lot of times people will say, we're not Jamaica, where there are no open attacks, there's no violence against those in the LGBTQI. So as long as it's not creating social upheaval, then it can't be too bad. And it's funny that people really think that. Do you feel that there is a level playing field?
I don't think there is. Some of us, like any other segment of society, we are insulated by certain privileges or bubbles. But there are many who aren't. And especially when it comes to, you say, what is reported. There are many instances of violence against members of the community that go unreported daily. As a matter of fact, the Silver Lining Foundation did a study in secondary schools, and bullying is still at an all-time high. I myself was a victim of that. But you transcend that, but not all of us can. Recently, there were attacks, violent attacks on members of the trans community in the St. Augustine area, and one member even had to fly to Tobago to get away and to sort of recalibrate. So Sasha Fierce was murdered, almost 2 years ago, and that's why we had the first parade at Mandela Park. So I would say things are better overall. We have a lot of friends, and even the police commissioner has come out in full support of the Pride celebration this year, and members of the public. But we still need a lot of awareness and education, because within families as well, they need to love their children and to be more open with them, so that that type of emotional and psychological violence doesn't take place as well in the home.
Faustino, I know that you're one of the allies for the LGBTQI community. How did you get involved with the LGBTQI community?
Well, I sort of found it impossible not to get involved. I have always worked with people who may not have the best voice in the society. A few years ago, I ran an after-school homework center, and I ended up working with a lot of kids who are not in regular school for different reasons. And I started realizing that, kids who were gay, kids who identified as different sexually, were coming into the school because they had to flee the regular school system. They weren't comfortable there, they were getting beat up, they were being targeted not because they had come out or declared themselves, but that because they seemed different. And it's very hard to hide who you really are, and you shouldn't have to. But these kids lived with a level of anxiety every single day, all the time, that I felt that they shouldn't have to live with. So now I'm a comedian, and I have a comedy duo that I work with. We're called Femcom. And so we decided we're definitely going to get involved with Pride. We're going to do a Pride-themed comedy show. It's a drink on the 5th of July. It's a Friday. And, you should come out and laugh, because we're going to be doing our usual comedy, like stand-up comedy sketches. But we're also going to be, in one of the sketches, we're going to be treating with, how we treat with homosexuality, how we treat with difference in our society. And so we're laughing, but we're also thinking
about serious issues.
Yeah.
Really, a lot of times, the concept of gender and gender identity, and there's a new conversation about raising your child without a gender identity and allowing that process to take its own manifestation. Do you think we still prescribe rules of male, female, and that pressure on the LGBTQI community?
Yes, and on all of society.
They do, yeah. I think that.
And in particular, there are moments when you see parents are trained, socialized a certain way as well. We have to be fair on both sides. Society has created this mold that you must fit into. And anytime you veer too far from that mold, you will feel the pressure of society. And that's why this year's theme is equal with an extra L. Because we're talking about equity and equality for all, because those are two different concepts, as you know, Hima. And I would even go so far as to say women's rights. There's still a lot that has to be done in society in terms of how women are viewed.
Amen. I think I should jump up on a highway or something.
And it is still unfair that a boy, let's say, who is perceived as having female traits, is seen as less than. And why is that? Because we still in society equate women to less than men, and that has to change. So that pressure is still there.
What's the hardest thing for you that you had to overcome in your journey to acceptance?
In my journey to acceptance, it was for me dealing with my family. It was interesting because while my mother and my grandparents were very supportive, there were still elements within the family, even from a middle-class background, where you knew that, as I said earlier, this would be far from the middle path, far from that what was expected. However, my family, fortunately, came around very quickly.
Right.
And that helped me to get through other challenges.
We're going to go to the Stonewall newscast. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation and also tell you what's happening and how we're celebrating Pride Month 20.